It's going to look confusing as what I'm doing, but what I'm trying to do is drive an effect for the ghost. I want this trailing wispy, eventually this trailing wispy effect, which I seem to only be able to create through Particle Playground. I caught this on an old demo once, and I used it on a original title that I did for my portfolio, and I thought I would use it for this. You might be able to use it with track code particular, but I don't know, I don't see where you can actually add different mapping and displacement effects by using layer maps. I don't know if, can't seem to find that, but this is the best way that I know. But I have to do this from an older project where I had this kind of like a streaky fireworks pixie effect, I guess, like a little thing shooting and flying down. This is very, very basic, very basic look. But if I got rid of this, here you can see this echoing, like a trailing echo effect on the project I'm doing now. If you look at the original without a, what I think it's a displacement map that I used on this, you'll see the same thing on this. You'll see the echoing trailing effect as the particle is moving from left to right. Let me undo that. Let's go into this Particle Playground settings. So what I did is just keep this, it's some of the very basic settings for Particle Playground. Particles per second set is 0, so it's not constantly creating particles. I set it to white, didn't do anything under the grid. Went to the layer exploder, and I'm using the woman character body as the actual particle producer. So that's what you're seeing there as it's moving and trailing down. I'm curious as how far this would go. I think it just kind of would go on for infinity throughout the composition. Yeah. I certainly don't want it to do that. I only want it to wisp out, you know, like this, like about this far, like maybe a few feet. But let's get back to this particle exploder. I just set it to 24.8. There's no effects to it. I didn't set anything to that. Now, so I set the layer map to a particular pixel ratio. What it is, and I think to be able to explain it, it's taking this particular layer map. Let me show it. Scooby-Doo particle. I named it particle. All this is just a solid layer. It's just a solid layer. Now, recall I found this through somebody else's tutorial. I set this to 12. Here's what the original looks like. I forget what the circular effect. I really forget what the circular effect is for. Why it has to be circle. I just basically went to this layer map, threw in generate circle, originally set this up to 8 by 8 pixels, so it's quite small, and this is going to help generate on each of those particles a kind of layer map. It's going to be a feathered layer map. It's going to be very minor, but it's going to give a softened look. I think is more like it. I'm kind of learning something here because I kind of forget what it is I did here. All right, so this is the radius for the circle is very, very small. I understand what this is. This is actually 1 pixel as part of that circle. If I were to expand this out, then you would see the full circle. This is just 1 full pixel expanded to the region of this whole entire 8 by 8, you know, pixel comp. So I soften the edge by 2. So if I undo this, I guess that's just the fullness of what it looks like. But you're feathering out the edge, so you're bringing out the edge to 2. And I originally set this down. I mean, it seems to work like I bring down the opacity to 12. Would be curious real fast if I brought it back up what this would look like. But you see on here, basically each of those particles are pretty soft. You know, it would be possible just to set probably a blur layer. Oh yeah, that's too intense, way too intense. That's why I've got it down to 12. That's just mapping. That's just the setting a kind of a mat around that will affect each particle. The next thing is to create these little wispy shapes as it's moving through the frame, as you know, and this is going to be a displacement layer. Now this is something new. I don't use this kind of thing very often, but I really do like it. Make the comp size. I think I'm setting this to a black. Eventually, you know, really, this probably should be put in its own comp. And I'm going to call it just like on my the other thing I got there. Oh, displacement. This is going to be a displacement layer. If I can spell, that would be nice. Comp. We'll call it that. Now, I'm going to do exactly. Unfortunately, I can't go from an older version of After Effects. This is 2015 into 17, and copy over the attributes because it just doesn't work. It does not look the same. But just real brief. All these are fractal noises, and this is going to drive this effect in each channel: the red, blue, green. Here's your red, green channel, and this is a blue. This one doesn't have the fractal noise, and I forget the reason why. It drives the effect better if you have a full opacity, you know, unaffected particle layer. Let me see here. But this is just the red, green channel, and so forth. I think this is just a regular blue layer. I'm filling it with blue. Now this is what I don't understand. Why I couldn't do a fill effect. See, I've used a layer effect for this. Why couldn't I just use a fill? Just go fill. There's got to be a reason why. That's the reason why. It overwhelms the fractal noise. You can't use any other effect on here, otherwise the fractal noise, if I'm understanding this, will be affected. The color, just the basic color channels will be affected. I'm just curious though. Gamma. You really could potentially make this look like that. I think the reason why you cannot affect the white, seem to be able to affect the white in this, it's like to go into the layer styles and use a color on the layer styles. Have to forgive me, I think it's a color overlay. So this would have been, well, I would have thought one of these overlays would have been it. Perhaps I have to dig deeper and twirl one of these down. I think what it is, if I'm understanding this correctly, there's a setting in here where it was just the green channel affected. So here's the blending options. Advanced blending. Green. Shut that off, we got nothing. Here we go. If I turn this off, we probably have blue. Yep. And so it affects everything, both the black and the white areas of this. Now I understand. Okay, so what I ended up doing is I ended up just copying and pasting from those empty layers into just creating a normal solid layer. Basically, I've just created a solid layer, copied and pasted the fractal noise on there. And I did some experimentations with the effect, that I think the swirly effect will look better on the ghost than like a turbulent noise, or turbulent smooth, or whatever. It just seemed to have the best effect. And you match that and do the same thing in the green layer. And then you add the blue, and there you have it. So I did a evolution on here. All I did is just change the scale on this and set it to a little bit larger, set it to 140. And did, you know, my evolution settings from here to there, 360 times 4. So it's not too fast, but it's fast enough. Let's do this. That matte displacement layer really is the key to this thing working and looking wispy. And with the settings that I have there, this is what it looks like. So in Particle Playground, the X speed and the Y speed really are the keys to making this look right. And there's all these different kind of little things that you can do here. Obviously, I set the persistent property mapper to the displacement comp, as well as the ephemeral property mapper. I don't know what ephemeral is. Persistent property, I guess that kind of makes sense. We don't really need to set anything to that one. And honestly, I don't even know how much this makes a difference. It really doesn't seem to make that much of a difference on this one because I haven't set anything to this. But I just did it just in case I needed to use this instead. The main thing is this: the speed, how it moves, and so forth, and the X and Y axes. And then the lifespan, because you want the lifespan to be very short, and that was the key. That's another key to this thing too, because anything even bigger than this, I mean, it just looks ridiculous. It's too long. The maximum is too long. If you set the minimum, it does elongate it a little bit more. Basically, that's just kind of what my preference is on this. See, it's just far too long. I was going to add brush strokes to this to kind of chop it up a little bit, but it kind of slows this whole thing down, and I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to add a directional blur to this just to kind of make it a little bit more wispy in a certain direction, but with the main blur going in under the fast blur. I like using the fast blur because it's faster than the Gaussian blur. Now basically I've done the same thing for all of these. For the man and woman, and then the duplicates. So I created new particle layers for each and then set, you know, the attributes to those particular layers, you know, man 1, man 2, man 3, woman 2. So I have different, unique particle playground for that, but kept the same displacement layers, just linked the displacement layer, or toggled those. Actually, you know what I did too? I did do 2 different displacement comps. One for the male characters and one for the woman. Didn't really matter that much, but I just like to be able to mix things up a little bit. These are almost the same, but I just changed up a few things. So these ghosts are really diffused in the shot here. So, and I just pretty much have them going into the building and disappearing into the building. And let's go to the final one here. Do that. So pretty much all that you see here, I mean, that was it. I mean, that is the majority of the work. And it didn't need to be a fantastically realistic walk. And all that is just that matte, the matte, just that fractal noise put on those 3 different red, green, blue displacement channels. And that's all that it is. I just really like that effect. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here to show you. I put a little bit of Gaussian blur on here just because it's too crisp. It's just too crisp looking. You know, it's computerized, so it's going to be a little bit too crisp in areas where it shouldn't. And I did a day for night video copilot plug-in on this. And then I also added some noise to kind of get rid of some of that crispness as well. And then threw in a music layer, music and sound effects. Yeah, so that's how you animate a ghost walk. So I hope you enjoyed all these tutorials. I know I didn't get really in-depth into everything, but just more of a how-to, and hope to do more for you again in the future. See you later.